listeners. Glad you're here. Today we have Dr. Gala Gorman, who is an acupuncturist, a naturopath, and the author of several books, including her latest book, which the title really is intriguing. What's Your Kryptonite? Manage the toxic stressors threatening your superwoman status. I really love that title. And Dr. Gail helps women identify and or eliminate or manage the toxic stressors in their world. And this reverses disease and restores their superpowers. So Dr. Gail, I love this kryptonite image and a way to manage stressors. Is there anything you want to say to introduce yourself that I left out?
Just appreciate you having me, Marie. I'm Dr. Gala Gorman, and just excited to talk about the book and how women can identify their unique kryptonite so that they can have their energy tank full.
Yeah. I think I have a clue on what mine is, but
okay.
Why did you write the book, this current book?
So the book had been in the works for a few years, but a couple of years ago, I lost my sister to cancer, and she had been struggling with that for a few years. And she was the quintessential superwoman in her world. Single mom, had a successful business of her own that she ran, and she had a little mini farm out in the country in Texas, and several big horses and dogs, and she'd always be sharing some crazy farm story with me. And how they found a copperhead snake in the hay barn, and so anyway, when I lost her, I just really felt like the information needed to get out there. Too many women think that they can just continue barely managing the stress in their lives, and that it's, they're kind of getting away with it, and they're just not. And so I just felt like the book had to get done, and I made that happen. And then, that was towards the end of last year. So
okay, so what is the difference between the garden variety stress that we think about and toxic stress?
Yeah, so most people think stress is just emotional or like a physical stressor. Like, for example, we kind of all know that to build muscle, we have to put stress on our body, right? You have to stress that muscle, and it kind of like breaks down short term, and then it repairs stronger. And so those are the stressors that we are all accustomed to hearing about, and that we have a pretty good understanding of. And so I refer to those as garden variety stress. But many times, even a stressor that started out as like not necessarily a bad thing can become toxic over time as it escalates. One of the examples that I often use is planning a wedding. Planning a wedding starts out as like something kind of fun and stressful, sure, but I'm so excited about the big event. And then dealing with all the competing priorities and everybody's opinion, and who wants to eat this or sit next to that person, or not sit next to that person. All of those things.
I'm laughing, I have to tell you, because my oldest daughter is planning a wedding for New Year's Eve.
And so she's probably dealing at this point, if it's just right around the corner, stress has become borderline toxic for her,
Yes, it
is. And so, when a wedding has an end date typically, and it's that period of time in the last few months before the event that gets really stressful, but we know it's going to end. The problem with a lot of other toxic stressors in our world is that there's no end in sight. These stressors have buried themselves in our body and are keeping our body's systems essentially revved up on high alert all the time. and it's contributing to things like insomnia and weight gain and fat accumulation and headaches and, all the symptoms that then we try to whack-a-mole with some sort of symptom suppressor, a pain reliever of some sort.
Right. My husband is stage 3 Parkinson's. So I'm becoming more and more his caretaker every day.
Yeah.
And that's stressful. And I understand I'm stressed. And I have the usual garden variety stress going on and my own health problems. Yeah. And what I try to do is find time to have self-care. I meditate. I also I'll get a massage, I'll get my nails done, I'll get a facial, I'll go to lunch with a girlfriend. These are all good things to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book, the title is Habits of a Happy Brain. And the author talks about the 4 different types of brain chemicals that our brain depends on. And that, when we've got a sufficient amount of those chemicals, or even like a little extra burst of those chemicals, they will improve our mood, boost our just overall feeling of well-being and happiness. Right. And so you talked about having lunch with a friend. That's a real big jolt of oxytocin, and just really improves our sense of well-being. Yes. If you do things that just provide some sort of satisfaction where you feel good about yourself. Like, for example, I'm a girl. Now that I'm in this field, I can't get my nails done really anymore, but I used to love to get my nails done. And I just love the feeling of looking at my hands, and my nails always looked nice and the cuticles were trimmed, and, and that is a hit of serotonin when that happens. And so anyway, just all these brain chemicals, we have ways that we can do what I call manufacturing them. So I have a little program called Manufacturing Happiness, and we talk about how to just make ourselves feel better, literally chemically feel better, and we can do that even if we got nobody else helping us, contributing.
Yeah. It's and stress does cause disease, and I know that firsthand. My first book was called Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons, and the wolves were my parents, and my first 2 husbands were the demons. And I dealt with a lot of traumatic things and domestic violence and even a little child abuse that I didn't want to believe there was abuse, but I found out later that it was considered abuse. And so I went through a lot of things. Addiction is one of them. And I got sober 34 years ago. But I still work on myself. Like, sure. I do not. I was in counseling for years and years. And I'll tell you why I'm bringing this up, because my husband was getting a little worse, and we got the pandemic, and we got stuck in the house 2020, about 9 months in the house, because I had an autoimmune, I had breast cancer, just we weren't going anywhere. And I started being mean to him. And thank God I have some self-awareness, and I knew it was a symptom of depression. Yeah. I knew it. So I got help, and I started doing on Zoom counseling. Yeah. And my psychiatrist said, let's tweak your antidepressant. And I'm telling you, I also know that stress causes inflammation in my body because I suffer from it. Sure. Am I correct on that? The stress causing?
Yeah, absolutely. The statistics are that 90% of disease is related to stress. And in my experience, it's higher than that. The percentage is higher than that, because I don't believe they are including some of the things that I consider stressors. Right. Yeah. And so stress is, I talk about it in my book, and to anyone who will listen, that stress is life-threatening. And the other important thing to really understand is that stress isn't going anywhere. You know, like we wouldn't want a stress-free life. That's not what we aspire to. So we have to learn to manage stress and become aware of when stress is escalating so that we can say, oh, things are getting a little out of control here. I need to dial it back.
Yeah, I get that too, because out of the pandemic came the book. I did something I would have never done, which is write book. And then it was like another book. And now I have three books and the podcast. And that's all wonderful. And I'm on the board of my church, and I'm on the board for a volunteer group I'm in. And it's all good and it's great self-esteem. But sometimes I feel overwhelming type stress. And it's not that anything bad is going on, it's that there's so much going on. So you kind of go on that way. There's different types of stress, and it's not always something bad. It could be too many good things in your life and you're too busy. But yeah,
Sure.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sometimes when I find that the people I work with are having that kind of experience where they look around their world and they say, you know, there's not really anything that would explain why I'm feeling what I would describe as a stress response, heart palpitations, just feeling like you have to work a little harder to catch your breath kind of thing.
Get that. Those two things.
Yeah, sometimes you find that there's actually some sort of toxic stressor that your body is having a challenge managing. And so those stress symptoms, when they don't go away with, the normal stress relieving techniques like meditation, like just stepping away, a little time for self-care, all of those things should, take the energy out of the stress. But if you find that you return to a really stressed situation where your body's just really feeling it, there may be toxic stressors. And in your particular situation, caregiving in your situation is stressful. There's just no two ways about it. And you, more than most, need to really do everything you can to capture those moments where you can take really extra good care of yourself to try to offset that.
Yeah, it's I'm a cheerleader with him. I have to be, because he's getting so depressed as he loses things that he always could do. And I'm the type of person, I'm always making jokes, I'm always upbeat. But I said to him, I said, yeah, God sent you a cheerleader. You knew you were going to need one someday.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will literally tell him a joke or say, put music on and say, let's dance, which he thinks I'm crazy, but he does it anyway.
Yeah.
And you know what? I get a little.
He feels better, and you feel better,
I do.
And at least you guys can still do some things that are fun to do together, right?
Yeah, we just got the car washed in the automatic one, and I never do that. He always used to take the car. Yeah. And I said, this is fun. I'm enjoying this, going through all the different things.
Yeah.
But that's it. And I don't think everybody's, let's say, capable of doing it. But I don't think everybody does that. Tries to find those little things.
Yeah. Yeah, really important. I have a program called the MOLT method, and it's a 4-prong approach to essentially keeping stress in check. And so in that MOLT method, every single one of the modules has some sort of exercise that you can practice in just a few minutes, 5 minutes or less. You can practice it even just sitting in your car at a stoplight, just park in a parking lot and take a few minutes. But I want people to have tools to use that are ready
Mhm.
and they don't need any sort of props. You don't have to be sitting somewhere
Yeah,
special.
yeah,
You just
gotcha.
have it ready to go when you're feeling it.
So I assume MOLT is an acronym for something,
It is.
MOLT. And what is that? I want to know.
So the way I describe it is we want to shed stress, just like the way it happens in nature when something's outgrown its what's
Yes,
got it held back.
yes.
It sheds its skin and
Mhm.
works on a new one. But M stands for mindset, O stands for order, L stands for lifestyle, and T stands for toxins. And so arguably the most important is T for toxins. We have to address the toxicity, or we can practice MO and L, really do a fantastic job of managing stress using those three prongs in the 4-prong approach. But if we don't deal with the toxins, then what we find is what you described, where it's like, my life doesn't feel that stressful. It doesn't seem like I've got that many really stressful things going on, yet I feel this real stress in my body. And
Yeah.
so
And
and it
what are
could
the toxins? What are we talking about here with toxins?
Yeah, so I evaluate 12 categories of toxicity. So
Mhm.
that'll be bacterial toxicity, chemical toxicity, fungal toxicity, food-related toxicity, mycotoxins, which tend to be mold, mycoplasma, um, viral, emotional toxicity. So
Mm.
I'm sure I'm missing a few, just trying to name them off the top of my head.
I'm
But I
familiar with at least
evaluate
half of
12
them. Yes,
I
I am.
evaluate 12 categories of
Uh,
toxicity because a one size fits all approach to essentially detoxing toxicity is unlikely to address that
mhm,
type of toxicity.
exactly.
Some types of toxicity are just really hard to pull out of your body, hard to deal with. For
Mhm.
example, let's take heavy metal toxicity, which is one I didn't mention a second ago.
There you go.
Heavy
Mhm,
metal toxicity, heavy metals are really challenging to pull out of your body, and you need a
mhm,
very specific protocol
mhm,
that's well managed to
mhm,
pull metal toxicity out of your body. Emotional toxicity. Emotional toxicity, I find, is rarely the primary form of toxicity that we have to deal with, but a lot of times it is a contributing factor. And so sometimes we can deal with the main one or two types of toxicity that I can deal with
mhm.
my protocols, but then somebody may need help, counseling, you mentioned already, some sort of
Mhm.
help to manage that emotional toxicity and bring that down.
Yeah, wow. Well, so it's really hard, I would imagine, to identify what toxicities you have, correct? I mean,
Well,
unless you take tests.
I use a unique method called a biofield scan, and it's based
Ah,
on quantum physics and resonant frequencies. And so it's just a quick scan that I run, and it just gives us kind of a snapshot. It gives us information that you can't get from a standard lab test. So what I tend to do is run my biofield scans, and
mhm,
we get the process started based on what we see there.
mhm,
And then once we get kind of the first layer of toxicity peeled off, then I may run a lab test of some sort. I have a lab test that I run that does require a urine sample, and we send that to the lab, and it comes back with what's kind of the deeper layer that we're dealing with. So we
mhm.
use several different ways of evaluating to make sure we're actually getting to the right thing, the root cause, because if you
Yeah,
don't address the root cause, you're just whack-a-moling symptoms.
yeah,
and
you're just
and
spinning your wheels. Yeah.
yeah, by the
So,
time your body has a symptom, by the time you're showing a symptom of something, your body's been dealing with that for a while. Your body manages it and you really barely know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then the symptom shows up, and the symptom is your body's message that says, I can't deal with this any longer.
Yes. Yes. 30 years ago, I had different symptoms, and at that time, and they still do it. Oh, you have fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
Like everybody has fibromyalgia, and I'm like, no, I don't think that's it. I think there's something else, And then it took probably 20 years before I got diagnosed with Sjogren's syndrome, which I don't know how familiar you are with Sjogren's.
Not too familiar with it, yeah.
Well, basically, people think of it as something that dries your mouth out, but it dries a lot of things out. Your eyes, your nose, everything. And it does cause inflammation. It's a lot of things. Still no, that's not everything. Like I'm with you. There's more. And so I'm pretty good about getting medical exams for different things and not taking someone's word for it. I just had a situation where my abdomen was filling with fluid, and I had some surgeries, and they said, oh, it's like just from scar tissue and your organs being in a different place than they were. They got pushed a little bit. And I said, no, I think there's something wrong. And finally, after 3 doctors, the surgeon got a syringe, I don't know, cc's, and that was about this way.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to take the fluid out. I said, okay. He took out 3 huge vials of fluid. Now, and that's good. I'm glad he did that. But what's really odd to me was he didn't biopsy any of it. Like, why didn't? And
it hasn't come back though.
He didn't send it out.
No, I mean, the fluid, it hasn't come back.
It is coming back.
It is coming back. So it's still, so there's definitely something going on there.
So I am going to, when I do go after the holidays, I'm going to insist that he sends out a biopsy.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because a lot of, especially women, they don't stand up for themselves with doctors. They think they know what they're doing. And I get second opinions. I question them. I'm sorry, it's my body.
Yeah. One of the things that I recommended my mother-in-law and her boy he's 90 and she's in her late 80s. I think she's going to be 88 in a few days. And they're generally pretty healthy, still get around and but he does have a lot of chronic pain from previous back injuries and overuse. In my world, it's called overuse injuries. And so they're always wrestling to get the doctors to take it seriously, especially at their age, right?
Yes.
And so I told them the last time we were there, which was recently, just a few weeks ago, I said, if you think there's something going on and you want to get a test, don't wait for the doctors to order something that they know they're going to get questioned by insurance. So once everybody's on Medicare, then they don't want to spend a dime, right? Other than what's covered by Medicare.
Yeah.
And you can get a self-pay MRI now for $250, and you've got to get a doctor to order it. But most doctors, if you just tell them, look, I'm going to go get an MRI and just pay for it myself. Can you just order the MRI? And I like an MRI because it doesn't put a lot of additional toxicity into your body with the radiation. An MRI is a fairly low toxicity scan.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And so so I think sometimes we have to be willing to take matters into our own hands and figure out how to get something done, regardless of whether the system's going to pay for it. Because in the long run, you're going to end up spending a heck of a lot more managing a problem that's turned chronic. And if you can get out ahead of it, do that.
Well, I'm very proactive when it comes to my health care, for sure. I broke my shoulder. The first surgeon put me to sleep. Suppose I was getting a shoulder replacement. I woke up and said I couldn't fix it. And I thought, why? Did you know that before you put me under? So he said, no, it can't be fixed because of this, that. And he drew me a picture and everything else. And now I went for a second opinion. And this doctor, he said, there's such a thing as a reverse shoulder replacement, and that would work for you. And I got a reverse shoulder replacement, and I could not, before this surgery, lift my arm past, say, here, and now I can go all the way up. This is the shoulder fixed. So there's a beautiful example of getting a second opinion.
Yeah.
I was left there handicapped.
Yeah. And it would really have been great if you would have gotten that second opinion before you let him put you under, because anesthesia is very toxic. And especially as you get a little older, you want to avoid anesthesia at all costs. But if you need the surgery to improve your mobility, and you're willing to do the post-surgery work, the rehab, physical therapy required to really get your range of motion back, all those things taken into account, it's worth it. But then know that you need to really work on pulling that toxicity from the anesthesia out of your body.
So what are some specific supplements that we might be able to take to deal with stress?
So I don't recommend taking any supplements long-term. Supplements are really just a natural form of medication. Honestly, all medication is based on some sort of herb or natural substance, but they've just added chemical things that make it more toxic to make it potentially stronger. And also so that they can patent it. You can't patent ragweed, right? So so I don't recommend that you take any supplements long term. I do use supplements in my protocols, but I have a very specific supplement protocol that is based on what your body is saying it needs to sort of have a reboot, a reset right now. And then we rest. And then we scan again, and we see what your body has been able to hold as an adjustment, and what is the next layer that needs to be peeled off. That being said, there are some things that I consider to be food enhancement that, because our diets tend to be so sorely lacking, food enhancement is an exception that I make to the no supplement rule. So there may be some things like sometimes I use cod liver oil, really high quality cod liver oil, because essential fatty acids are really important.
Is the fish oil capsule, is that okay? Because that's what I take.
It depends on the quality of it and where it's sourced from, because there's a lot of potential metal toxicity there. Some of the other things that I use are collagen. And again, it's where you're getting that from, the source of it, and make sure it's high quality. But collagen can be a really great addition. Sometimes we'll use like liver supplements to just, our liver, especially by the time we get into our, middle age, our livers just really worked hard already, right? And we're asking it for another 40, 60, 80 years, right?
Yeah. You're not talking about iron, though. You're not talking about iron. when you say supplement?
Not necessarily. You have to be very careful with iron, because iron supplements, if you don't need iron supplementation, they
Mhm.
can be really difficult on your system. So you
Okay.
don't want to be taking, that's one of the problems with supplementation, is people read about something and they say, oh, I think that's
Mhm.
what my problem is, and
Of
so I
course.
should get that supplement. And then the next thing you know, you've got a dozen things that you're
Yeah, I
taking
know.
randomly, and you have no idea whether you really need them
You
or not.
forget why
And
you're taking them.
yeah, and all those things are making your liver more toxic.
Yeah,
Your liver has to process all of that
right.
stuff.
What
So,
about probiotics and prebiotics?
so that's another thing that there's a million strains probably of probiotics and prebiotics,
Yeah.
and I want to know what your body really needs.
Ah,
So I don't recommend even taking something like that.
really?
Your body should be handling that
Oh,
on its
wow.
own.
Huh.
We shouldn't have a problem if we're eating a pretty decent diet and not taking
Okay.
antibiotics. If you have to take antibiotics for some
Mm-hmm.
purpose,
Mm-hmm.
that's a possibility of having a problem. You mentioned that you take an antidepressant,
Yes,
and the antidepressants definitely interfere with gut health. And so
I do
in your
need it.
particular case,
Yes,
it might make sense to try to offset some
the
of
two.
that.
Yeah.
But again, I just caution
Yeah.
anybody about taking anything long term, and without evaluating, like,
Yeah,
do I
I'm going to
really
go look at what I have, but I do take biotin, collagen, iron, and probiotics,
yeah,
those things. But I'm going to look and see if I have any. At one time, I had like ashwagandha or whatever, like really,
ashwagandha? Yeah,
yeah, so things like that. I'm not taking it now, but like you said, short term, probably okay,
yeah. So it's
depending.
interesting, like a lot of people, through all the stuff that's happened in the last few years, people
Hmm.
heard that zinc is really good for you, so they started supplementing with zinc.
Oh,
And zinc is good for you, and supplementing with zinc isn't necessarily a bad thing, but only if you need it. And so
uh-huh.
what happens is, if your body has become accustomed to having zinc supplemented from the outside, then it's
Hmm.
not making zinc natively the way it
Oh,
needs to. And
okay.
so what happens then, when you need an extra boost of zinc, you can't just take external zinc
Hmm.
orally and have that get the job done.
And you wouldn't
You're
know that you
Yeah,
needed that boost anyway. You're not going to know that. That's your
right,
body's job. Wow.
right.
We have to have another episode, another show, because there's so much we can. I mean, really, this happens all
Yeah.
the time when I get into it. A very interesting topic. So the book again, What's Your Kryptonite? I love that. Manage the toxic stressors threatening your superwoman status. I love that. I'm going to get that probably today. Do you probably yeah. Do you have
Me today.
yeah. Do you read ebooks or do you like the paperback better? Like a
So it really depends on the book. In a perfect world,
yeah.
Amazon would figure out how to sell us all three versions. This book is not out on Audible
Yeah.
yet, but I
Mhm.
hopefully will get that done this year or going
Uh-huh.
into 2024. But I would love to have a book, physical book, on
Mhm.
Kindle and on Audible.
Oh, yeah, right.
For
Yeah.
me, that would be the perfect combination, and to
Yeah, buy
pay
it all at
one
once.
price, a bit of a
Yeah.
premium, but get all three versions.
That sounds
Unfortunately,
like
just
a
the
good
way,
idea.
yeah, isn't it a great idea?
Well,
The problem is with the licensing and the way it works, it
mhm.
just it
I
doesn't
am
work
going to
that way.
send you a copy of my book. So,
Oh,
should I
fantastic.
send
Yeah.
you the digital copy?
Yeah, I just forward it right to my Kindle email address, so it works great.
I like to do that as a thank you for coming on.
I
And
appreciate that.
also, you'll probably find it interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. G, for coming on. This was wonderful. I'm sure my listeners got a lot out of it. And I am going to have you back next year. We'll do this again.
Okay, sounds great. Looking forward to it, Marie, and have a great 2024 until I talk to you again.
Yes, we'll have lots to talk about by then. I'll have so much stress on the holidays. Bye bye. Thanks again.